Hello and good morning. Welcome into the Sunday morning betting show powered by FTN. Crist, Meaney, Matthew Freedman, Eliot, Crist here with you for the next 30 minutes or so, breaking down our favorite bets for week 8 of the NFL season. If you're hanging out with us, thanks. If you're watching the replay, leave a comment there. If you're watching on the YouTube section, circle back before kickoff. If you do have any questions, please, if you are watching on that FTN YouTube page, we appreciate a like. Smash that like button. Leave a comment there. Just a reminder that all sports, all picks, $49.99 per month over at ftnbets.com, and they are all happening right now. Happy Halloween, the last day of October, maybe the last day where the Big Four will be happening in sports, but we are here to talk some football, and make sure you use that promo code FTNWins for 10% off. Eliot, we'll start with you. Happy Sunday, dude. What's going on?
Happy Sunday, man. Halloween. Clearly, you're gorgeous for Halloween. Love it. Love the costume, and excited for some football.
I'm Nick Sirianni. Like, you just gotta, we gotta be watering. We're watering here this morning. We're laying the roots down, and we're gonna have some nice picks for you by the end of this show. Hopefully, some winners for you. Freedman, happy Sunday, dude.
Thanks. Happy Sunday. I hope you are fertilizing in addition to watering. Fantastic slate of games we have to talk about.
Let's start with you. What's your favorite spread on the board here?
All right, it's disgusting. It's Steelers plus 4.5. Actually, I need to check to see if it's maybe moved even more, but Steelers plus 4.5 at the Browns. The Steelers should be rested and ready coming off of the Week 8 bye, and they know the Browns well as AFC North rivals. In a divisional game, anything more than +3 starts to catch my eye. So we're very much on the positive side of +3 here. So I think this should be strongly considered. For me, some of the big factors are the injuries that the Browns are dealing with. They have a lot of guys who are coming back from injury, but those guys are not fully healthy. So quarterback Baker Mayfield still dealing with the left shoulder injury. Jedrick Wills has the ankle injury. He played in week 7, but that injury is lingering. Right tackle Jack Conklin missed week 6 and 7. He's returning, but he's still dealing with the knee injury. You have running back Nick Chubb, who's returning from the calf injury that had him out for 2 weeks. Obviously, Kareem Hunt is out on IR. Wide receiver Jarvis Landry is playing through that knee injury. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. has the shoulder injury. He's been struggling for the past few weeks. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones is out with a groin injury. That's just the offense. That doesn't even take the defense into account. Edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney has an ankle, a groin, a knee injury, like an onslaught of issues that he's dealing with. He didn't practice all week. He's questionable. And then the big one, number 1 cornerback Denzel Ward is out with a hamstring injury that forced him from last game. Without him, I think the Browns really could struggle in pass defense. And for his career, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin is 42, 22, and 3 against the spread as an underdog. And in division, it's even better, 15, 5, and 2 against the spread as a divisional underdog. Like, when Tomlin knows the teams that he's going against, and when he's kind of pushed in this corner and he has this us against the world mentality, his teams just tend to outperform market expectations. This is the spot in which Tomlin's teams thrive, and they're going against a Browns team that is significantly injured, even though they are getting some players back. So getting more than +3, I really like the value here.
So you don't think Tomlin's just thinking ahead of looking, at a college coaching career? I thought that, man, I like that he snapped. It's like, guys, listen, I have the best job in the NFL. Stop it. Like, don't ask me that anymore. You're not asking any other head coaches those kind of questions. You're not asking Sean Payton that kind of question after games and, before games. I thought that was hilarious. I'm with you, man. It's one of my favorite bets on the board, and I'm surprised. Like, I saw it at 3.5, and then I saw it at 4, and then I saw it at 4.5, and I'm like, wow, should I have been waiting on this? I thought, honestly, it would go the other direction. Eliot, before we go to you, and I want to talk more about that game, I'm just going to throw out, I'm rocking the hat. It means nothing. I don't think the Eagles should be favored against any team in the NFL, honestly. It's the same sort of deal. I get that hook, the 3.5, Detroit at home. This is a team that has played competitive all year. Even last week, I know that there was a bit of a rivalry there with, playing Matthew Stafford. And then the Goff thing, they were up 19-17 in the third. They couldn't hold on to that game. They came back. They in week 1 against San Fran, they were down by 3 scores. They came back in that game. You could really say that they should have beat the Baltimore Ravens. I thought that they played the Ravens really tight, and you had a record-setting field goal by Justin Tucker at the end of that game. And this Eagles defense, they're just not playing good football. They haven't been able to stop the run all year. And against the pass, they've really struggled as well, allowing quarterbacks a 74.4% completion rate. Guys, the NFL record is 72. I saw this stat in Philly just last week. So the Eagles' first 1,200 games, they allowed 8 quarterbacks to have an 80% completion rate against them. Over their last 5 games, 4 quarterbacks have had an 80% completion rate against them. Derek Carr absolutely torched them and just really decided not to throw the football in the second half. He was 31 for 34. He was basically perfect in the first half. There was one deflected pass, which was a turnover inside the red zone. This is a team that is struggling all over the place to stop the run, to stop the pass. And I'm not sold offensively that they can go in there and just do whatever they want here. They're without Miles Sanders, not that they ran the football anyways. This is a game that maybe could be a little bit more competitive. But Eliot, for me, a 3.5 at home, give me the hook here. I don't think the Eagles, if they win, I don't think they win by more than a field goal.
No, I'm with you. The Eagles shouldn't be favorites, and certainly not road favorites over anybody. You know, their entire philosophy of keeping everything in front of them is just allowing, you know, teams to have success up and down the field. And frankly, daring Jared Goff to throw it underneath is Jared Goff's wet dream, right? So like this is they struggle against the run. That's really where the Lions, they've built this team around their offensive line and their 2 running backs. I really like the Lions in this game. I think they win straight up. I'm sorry to hear that you don't think that the fertilizer and, you know, the roots and Nick Sirianni getting advice from his dad is not the way to go as an NFL head coach. I'm kind of disappointed that Matt Freedman is going, like he mentioned all those Mike Tomlin stats and this great argument, but he didn't mention the fact that the Browns have Darnell Johnson, who's the greatest running back of all time. So like, I feel like he didn't factor that in. But no, the Browns probably shouldn't be favored over 4.5 in an interdivisional game right now, especially with the way they're struggling through the air. The issue is, of course, that Ben Roethlisberger is terrible. So that's the part of it that probably inflates the line. But I would be on the Steelers side. That was not a no bet for me, but I'm on the Lions with you, Meaney.
All right. Yeah, and I think Swift we get to props a little bit later on, and I left Swift off the board, but I think he has another game with 100 total yards, rushing and receiving. He's done it 4 times so far this season. He had a monster game last week doing that, and they have allowed the 4th most rushing yards. And inside the top 10 in targets allowed to backs, catches allowed to backs, and receiving yards allowed to backs as well. Eliot, we'll go back to you. What do you got for us in terms of a spread?
Yeah, I was actually just, if you saw me looking off screen, using the FTN prop shop to look at what Jamal Williams' rushing total was for that game as well, because in every competitive game this year, he's got 12-plus opportunities, and it's coming up at 36.5. So I'm actually going to go bet that after the show. I like the Swift call as well, but that's too low for a guy that's going to see 12 to 14 carries against the Eagles. I really like the Chargers, you know, and I know I was on the Chargers against the Ravens, and they let me down, but frankly, I think that's what's allowed this line to be so low, right? The Patriots beat up the Jets last week. Congrats. You and everybody else have done that, right? And the Chargers just got blown out. Those are the last 2 instances that we've seen these teams. And whenever we have 2 blowouts on other sides, I feel like we get too much volume on, you know, the one that's coming off looking great. And I understand that the Patriots beat this team up last year as well. But, you know, I think the Patriots are a very overrated team, and I continue to think the Chargers are one of the top 5-6 teams in the NFL. Justin Herbert is an MVP candidate. They are going to dare the Patriots to run, which the Patriots will do, right? Damian Harris should have a pretty big game in this one, but I just think there's a valuable number. I have this line at 6. 4 suggests that these teams are even on a neutral field, and I simply don't think that's the case. And while I know Bill Belichick is the better coach, I actually think that Staley embraces new age analytics a lot better than Bill Belichick does. And so I think there's a bit of an advantage there in terms of just win probability. So I get the better quarterback. I think I have the coach that's going to make the better decisions. I think I have the better overall roster, and I have the home field advantage. Granted, it's the Los Angeles Chargers, so I got the 3 fans that are going to show up for Los Angeles, right? But just when I see a game that I would have at 6.5, 6, and it's 4, it's really tough for me to pass on the value of the Chargers this week.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me watching the Chargers play when Herbert's at home and he has to put his hands over his ears. Like, guys, like, it's just too much noise here. Browns fans taking over, Raiders fans taking over, maybe a couple Patriots fans. But I agree with like everything that you said. right there. I'm a big fan of this Chargers team. I think they have the most talented roster. And it looks like Austin Eckler is going to play because there's some pictures that surfaced last night on Twitter that he is starting himself in his own fantasy league. So I think that's a sign right there that Eckler is good to go. Freedman, we'll throw over to you. Give us a total that you like.
Just got to say, starting yourself in your own fantasy league is one of the most alpha things that anyone can ever do in life. Totally love Austin Eckler for doing that. I'm going to dovetail off of Eliot talking about that Chargers game. I'm going under Patriots Chargers under 49.5. The Chargers have a 1-5 over/under record this year, and there's this question about how can a team that on offense is so good, number 2 in points per play, number 4 in seconds per play. So a team that is scoring and that is moving fast on offense. How is it that they can skew so heavily to the under? And I think Eliot touched on it here. Here's the theory. The Chargers have a strong funnel defense that ranks number 5 in pass DVOA, but number 32 in rush DVOA. They essentially, it's not that they beg offenses to run on them. They force offenses to run on them. And that essentially shortens the game and drives totals to the under. And as Eliot mentioned, the Patriots are going to be more than happy to run the ball all game, anytime they have the opportunity against the Chargers. The Patriots are a ball control team. They have a short throwing rookie quarterback in Mac Jones, between the tackles, Grinder and Damian Harris, and a defense that ranks number 12 in EPA per play and success rate. So this kind of game that they are entering into is exactly the kind of game that they want to play. So if the Chargers invite the Patriots to run the ball, the Patriots are going to accept with pleasure. That will mean prolonged drives for the Patriots and then fewer scoring opportunities on the other side of that for the Chargers and quarterback Justin Herbert. So 49.5 feels way too high for a number given this game and the type of game state that we're going to have.
And I'm just going to transition into something very similar, Freeman, with my next pick here with the under in Pittsburgh and Cleveland at 42.5. So it's a little bit lower. Now, I agree with you. I'm with you on the Steelers covering this. I think that they could potentially win this game outright. But I'm also with Eliot in the fact that Big Ben stinks, man. This guy is just not a great quarterback. He's not, over the past couple of years, he just hasn't been able to throw the football down the field with accuracy. The last time he played this Browns team, I mean, the total cruise that went over was a playoff game. I think he was sacked I think it was like 5 times. He had 5 picks. He also threw the ball almost 70 times. They had no run game at all. And Najee Harris has looked a little bit better running the football behind that offensive line. But Cleveland has the league's best run game, and they're second against the run. 3.5 yards per carry allowed, 80.4 rushing yards allowed per game. That's number 2, both marks there. And Pittsburgh has played to the under in both their road games. They play to the under. Listen to this record for Pittsburgh road games. The under has hit 37 times, 37, 12, and 1 since 2015. And also what you're saying with New England, Matthew, running the football, slowing the pace down, prolonged drives. This is exactly what Cleveland does so well. I don't know how many times I watch this team, and it's like a 14, 16 play drive that kills about 8 to 10 minutes off the clock. They're, according to our pace tools, 29.5 seconds per snap. It's the 3rd slowest mark in the league. 49.78 rush rate. It's number 2. Nick Chubb is back. Dearness Johnson showed that he could run behind that offensive line. We've talked so much on this show and all year doing our prep on other shows and over at FTN about this offensive line being the best in football, and they showed it. Like, nothing against Dearness Johnson. He had a couple nice cuts last week against the Broncos, but there's a lot of nice holes for him as well. So I think that they have success running the football, and I think both teams really, honestly, struggle to throw the football. Baker is going to play here. He's not 100%. Freeman, you listed off a lot of injuries that the Browns have, but even too, like Odell Beckham Jr. is not 100%. He, every time he goes up for a catch, he falls on the shoulder. He's in a lot of pain just to get up. I think this is a slow-paced game, a grind, field goal games. I don't think we'll see a lot of points. So even though it's a low total at 42.5, Eliot, I gotta go with the under. I see a game here that's like 17-14. Hey, who knows? They may tie again. A couple years ago, they did tie in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that if the game goes over, it's because Nick Chubb went off, right? Like, if this game goes over, you're going to wish Nick Chubb was in your DFS lineups. I know we have an NFL offensive efficiency tool, and the Browns are projected for the most open field yards on the entire slate. So, I just want to say that we're going to move off. I agree that it is the under is the right play. I agree that this is going to be a slow, grinded out game. The Steelers can't push the ball down the field. But I feel like we mentioned 28 players on the Browns roster, but no one talked about how Wyatt Teller's healthy. And Wyatt Teller is the best offensive lineman in the league.
So we did it up for you, yes.
So we're gonna move right along to an over. These under bets, the worst thing in the world to root for, right? Like, who's the guy that says whatever you bet is under, you just want to put a movie on because no one wants to root for unders? But I like the over in the Bills-Dolphins game. And now I know it's a second divisional matchup, right, which is a little concerning. So the first time was with Jacoby Brissett. And I know that there's slight winds, 15-mile-per-hour gusts. I don't really care. I think that gets overblown basically every single time. This Dolphins defense has allowed 30 or more points to all four competent offenses they played. The Bills scored 35 points against them, and Josh Allen played terribly. Tua's been a lot better than people give him credit for. I think PFF has him as a top 5 graded quarterback the last 2 weeks. The Dolphins also play with good pace, right? Top 5 in pace. But when they're trailing by 8 or more, you're talking about a team that throws the ball 70+% of the time. So I think you're going to see a high pass volume in this offense. And we know the Bills, even when they get up, they don't take their foot off the gas, right? Brian Dabble, I think they still pass it 57% of the time when they're up by 8 or more. So I think you're going to see a high pass volume. The Dolphins defensive unit, probably after Washington's, is the most disappointing one in the entire league. They also play a ton of man-to-man coverage, which will lead to less Cole Beasley, because I think he's 4th on the team in yards per route run and targets against man coverage, and more Emmanuel Sanders. So you're going from a guy in Cole Beasley, who is the underneath receiver, to a guy in Emmanuel Sanders who's averaging 17.2 yards per catch and can get behind that defense. So I think it's going to be the Allen, Diggs, and Emmanuel Sanders show. I think the Bills are going to score 30+ points with ease. And I think the Dolphins are, like, I know, here's the counterpoint is Eliot. The Bills have the number 1 pass defense in the NFL. They're only allowing 180 yards per game. I think we've seen that the Bills are starting to also come back to earth a little bit. They played well against Patrick Mahomes, right? But they still put up 20 points. The Titans got them. I think we're seeing the Bills defense kind of regress more to the mean, which is closer to like a top 12 defense than a top 3 defense. And I think Tua is going to be able to do enough to put up 14 to 17 points, maybe even 21, and this game go over.
Yeah, and let's be honest of who they played, right? They just played the Steelers, who we kind of crapped all over in week 1. They played Miami, and Tua left that game pretty early, I do believe. Played Washington, played Houston. So they've played some pretty brutal offenses so far this season. And historically, I mean, it's a small sample, but Josh Allen has lit up Miami. 9 touchdown passes the last 3 games and 12 in his last 4 against the Dolphins. I agree with you. I think they score 30 pretty easily. Freedman, will go over to you if you want to touch on that game by all means, but also let's transition into some props here.
Yeah, I like that game, and I do like the logic of it. If the Bills are to go off and cover this massive spread, 14.5 points that's out there, that means the over has a pretty good chance of hitting. It's hard for a team to cover by that many points and for the over not to hit. So I think that's a good call there. The prop that I'm looking at, Matthew Stafford under 35.5 pass attempts. I got this at BetMGM. The Rams are 15.5 point favorites last I checked, massive favorites. And Stafford has attempted just 26 and 28 passes in the 2 games that the Rams have won by more than 10 points. And if you look on the other side of this, you look at the Texans, in all 6 of their losses, they have held, air quotes, they have held every quarterback under 35.5 pass attempts. And that's because opposing offenses, they just know that they don't need to throw the ball to beat the Texans with ease. So I think this is a run-heavy spot. We see a lot of Darrell Henderson. We potentially even see some Sony Michel. I don't think we see unleashed Matthew Stafford in this game. And that's to say, like, he could have 3 or 4 touchdown passes and still have fewer than 35.5 pass attempts, just based on how this game could unfold. So very much on the under here, 35.5 pass attempts for Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think they cruise. Their defense scores some points. They lean on the run game. Massive favorites here. Eliot, I'm going to go back to the Eagles here before we throw to you. There's 2 Philly guys that I actually like in this game, despite, coming in here and talking about Detroit potentially winning the game and just getting that hook at home. I just really like it. But DeVonta Smith at 4.5 grabs. This was minus 104 at FanDuel when I put it in Thursday night, maybe Friday morning. I'm seeing now minus 124, so it's still like not bad. Use our prop shop, get the best possible odds out there. Some spots -160, say -160 DraftKings, -154 BetMGM, FanDuel still given -130. So for DeVonta Smith, he has at least 5 grabs and 9 targets in 3 of his past 4 games. There was one game against the Bucs where they just played him pretty tight. They were all over him. I think that was kind of the game plan for Tampa Bay. Listen, it's just Smith, and nobody else is going to really beat us on this team. But other than that, this guy has been getting, a healthy just dosage of targets. Overall, he's got, just using our free air yards tool over at FTNFantasy.com, 38% of his team's air yards, a 24% target share. Those are healthy numbers, especially for a rookie wide receiver. And also, with the Eagles struggling against the pass, Detroit has as well, 9.5 yards per attempt. It's the number 1 mark in the NFL, top 10 in passing yards allowed, 27th in pass DVOA. According to a wide receiver cornerback matchup tool, good spot here against Jerry Jacobs, who has a 72% catch rate allowed so far this season. Just because, they can run on Detroit doesn't mean that they're going to start running the football. If you follow this team, they have been throwing the football. Now they have Kenneth Gainwell, who struggled as a pass blocker last week and, fumbled the rock. And then Boston Scott was getting some early down work. So I still think that Jalen Hurts will drop back enough here. And then I'll throw Dallas Goedert as still another guy that, played 90% of the snaps last week, ran 35 routes, and he over 90% of Hurts' dropbacks, he was running a route. There's no Zach Ertz on that team. He had a season-high 70 receiving yards last week, so 49.5 is his prop here. I think, both of these guys are definitely in play, but I feel a lot better about DeVonta Smith getting 5 grabs here against the Lions. Eliot, what do you got for us?
I love the Dallas Goedert call. He's especially if you look at his yards, I think it's 51.5. The Lions are 28th DVOA against the tight end position, and Goddard's got 6 receptions of 20+ yards. So this year, Goddard's got a lot more big playability than most tight ends. And to Freedman's point about Stafford, passing attempts are one of my favorite props to bet. And Stafford went over last week because they were down 10-0. But if the Rams get up early, Stafford can have 300 yards and 4 touchdowns and not throw the ball 36 times in this game. So I love that call, especially because the Texans give up big plays in chunks. And when they can pick up 30 yards in one play, it doesn't take 4 pass attempts, right? I'm going to stick with this Bills and Dolphins game, and I'm going to keep riding to it. Last week I was on this player prop. It smashed the over at 250. This week it's down to 230 looking at that Bills defense. But again, 40+ pass attempts the last 2 weeks. The Dolphins are not scared to let him drop back and throw. We'll see. Probably no Devontae Parker would be my guess. We'll see what that actual news is. But Jalen Waddle has a lot of big playability, and he's able to unlock it with Tua, right? I think his ADOT with Tua is over 9 yards, as opposed to with Jacoby Brissett, it was 3.4 yards, which might be the worst usage of a top 6 pick in the history of football. But that's a conversation for another day. But if you're talking about a quarterback that's going to drop back 40, 45 times in this game, 230 yards is that's disrespectful. And I understand the Bills defense is really good. It's just, this is such a low number, for a guy that's going to throw the ball 45 times. This isn't Justin Fields, where actually maybe now Justin Fields is allowed to throw the ball more than 22 times because Matt Nagy's out today, right? But it's just, when you start looking at what he needs to average yards per attempt, if he has 1 or 2 big plays in this game, he should sail over 230.
Yeah, I like the connection that he has with Waddle, and Gesicki's shown up here. Smythe, that guy's been catching a few passes as well down the field. All right, do you got something not totally outlandish, but actually I'm here for the outlandish long shot props? I'd love to hear one. If you got one, please give it.
I'll give you 2. I'll give you one outlandish one that is legit, just for funsies, has no correlation. Freedman will roll his eyes and say, Eliot, stop telling people to do this because it's a terrible idea. But here we go. I really like T. Higgins to score a touchdown today. So I'm going to go T. Higgins 2 touchdowns. He has got a 44% end zone target share. I think the Bengals can score a lot. And Derrick Henry to score 2 touchdowns. If both those things happen, it pays out at 51-1. Let's kind of come back to earth here, though. This pays out at 11.50. I have not shut up about this game. Bills, Dolphins over. Josh Allen over 283 passing yards. Meaney, you talked about how much they've just dominated the Dolphins with Josh Allen. Emmanuel Sanders over 54 yards and a touchdown. He leads the team in end zone targets, second in red zone targets. No Dawson Knox as well, which probably opens up more touchdown equity for Emmanuel Sanders. And we run it back with Tua over 230 yards. That pays out at 11.50. To me, that's a story that makes a lot of sense.
And I saw Freedman just shaking his head. Yes, there was no eye rolling at all in that. Freedman, I think you like that one.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love it. You're using the GPP type of mindset, like that you use to create a winning GPP lineup, and you're just applying it to the prop market. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Sanders has been fantastic for the Bills. I didn't think he'd be this awesome. He's been so good and so reliable, getting targeted down the field, and definitely a popular end zone target for Josh Allen. And I love the Higgins call too. I mean, this guy was actually dropped in season-long leagues last week, despite having 15 targets last week. 15 targets, guys, and averaging 9 targets per game this season. Good stuff, guys. Always a pleasure. Check out FTNBets.com. All picks, all sports, $49.99 a month. FTNBets.com/pricing. Use that promo code FTNWins. Elliot Freedman's Elliot Freedman, geez, I combined you guys. Imagine that, both of you guys. Like, you guys are already on top of here on the mountains, and I just combined you. But Mr. Freedman, Matthew, will be with you for the next 30 minutes answering all the questions you have, sponsored by Jock Market. And Sunday, NFL DFS Live with Debro and Kyle Murray coming your way as well, powered by FTN. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.